Just want to welcome everyone. We've got a lot of folks that are going to be coming in today. I see a lot of new faces. I see a lot of friendly faces that we've all been around. If you're wondering what's behind me, this is a wow wall. And over the last couple of months, I have been working with Blackwing Pencil to create a curriculum for children, but really it's for all ages and it's completely free. I'll talk a little bit more about that today. But I made a wow wall because I was teaching how to letter like a graphic novelist. And so some of you know how to do that. For those of you who don't, I do teach a class on my website, but I'm going to be teaching a free mini version through the Blackwing Foundation. And I was thinking that in a lot of comic books and graphic novels, there are words like kapow and bam and bang, and those all seem so violent to me. And I thought, what about wow? I get to talk about making rounded letters and letters that have straight lines. And as I put it up, I went to a meeting right after that, and I was like, oh my gosh, I forgot to take down my wows. And people were like, leave it up. It looks great. And I agree. I think it looks really fun with this colored background. And I thought this could be the theme for this month or this year around, well, I would say this month's session around making 2025 a wow year. I want to take a moment and just recognize that humanity has been through a lot lately. All of us have been going through so much, and my heart goes out to all of those who are in California, displaced and affected by the fires, and those who are still rebuilding in North Carolina from the flood. And I've heard back from some friends, we did some fundraisers for Asheville, that they're doing pretty good. However, there are communities around Asheville, the mountain towns around Asheville, that are still struggling a lot. Some of them still can't get water, transportation, bridges are still down. So really thinking about our calligraphy friends, our visual practitioner friends, artists, and people all around the world who have really have needed support. So I've certainly had my share and still recovering from some health issues and financial stuff. But I want us to remember today that we humans, though we certainly go through a lot, and sometimes we put ourselves through a lot, I want to just to remind us how privileged we are to be here today, to have roofs over our heads, to have contact with each other through Zoom, and have this opportunity to take some meaningful time to look ahead, if that's at all possible. So I want to share with you one of my favorite quotes by Toni Morrison. As you enter positions of trust and power, dream a little before you think. And if as you're embarking on new projects, some of you might be taking on new jobs or new positions and organizations. This particular quote to me means a lot because I think there's an opportunity for us to pause. And so today we're going to dream a little bit before we step back into our positions of privilege and power. And it's a reminder to me that while there are people in positions of power who might not always be thinking of the greater good, I and each one of us can always do our part to be our best and by serving others in our communities. And so we're going to do a head, heart, and hands exercise today. But before we jump into that, I do want us to talk a little bit about what's going on in Make It Your Lettering Year. I know some of you are already signed up, but I just want to remind you some of the prompts that we've been working on. And our first prompt of the year is handwriting, because this is kind of where we probably all started when it came to lettering, was learning how to write in elementary, grade school, primary school, whatever you call it. And I want to introduce you to the curriculum, if you haven't already seen it, that I'm building for Blackwing. And although this is for grades 3 and up, it's actually free and available to anyone. So if you know of someone who wants to improve their handwriting, if you want a letter with some of the kiddos in your life, this is a great way to letter together. And I'll put it in the chat. Again, it's completely free. You can sign up at the bottom of the page if you want if you want to find out when the next series is coming out. But this is really available to anyone. And I say, if you can even share it with school teachers, this is made by school teachers for school teachers. I've collaborated with 2 retired school teachers who take all of my content and turn it into quizzes and lesson plans and projects. And so we launched our Intro to Lettering last fall, and Letter Like a Graphic Novelist should come out here in the next month. And then we're going to dive into cursive, which is really exciting. It's going to be italic-based cursive, and I'm excited to share that as well. So moving on with Make It Your Lettering Year, in week 2, we talked about tools. And this whole year is the theme for Make It Your Lettering Year is dedicated to tools. And the whole year is also dedicated to our beloved Carol Dubosh. If you don't already know, she is celebrating her 80th birthday year this year. Yay! So we're just going to celebrate all year, because if you're like me, I like to celebrate the month, but I think when you hit a major milestone like this, like Carol has, then we can celebrate the whole darn year. So week 2 is really about tools and lettering with tools. We'll be talking about tools throughout the year. And then, of course, week 3, I believe that was probably a live session. So we talked about improving handwriting, cursive forms, planning out the lettering year. I've done something every year, I think, for the last 3 or 4 years, like what we're going to do today, that helps you plan and strategize. For those of you that know me, I usually do all my planning and strategizing. I start it back in August in Llamas and harvest season, and I have a 6-month process that I go through. So this is sort of a, I don't know, I don't think you can get enough of this, but if you're one of those that's not a planner, then today we're just going to do some dreaming too. And then I just want to remind everyone to build their lettering library. And then just 3 tips if you are new to lettering, or just as a reminder to make the most out of your lettering year. Attend as many live sessions as you can. Watch the recordings if you can't. Make time to practice and create a space. Some people are kitchen table artists, and that is totally fine. But if you can create a space, at least for your supplies, then you're showing your creativity muse that you are dedicated to making this happen, and it will be more likely to happen. You can build great habits if you create the time and the space. Also want to remind everybody, this session will be recorded. I'll make it available to everyone for a month, and it will be in the Make It Your Lettering Years archives for lifetime access. Okay, quick reminder, in case you can't make it to the end, I'm going to have a whole list of things that we are doing this year, but I just want to remind everyone that we have Amity Parks for pencil lettering. She's going to kick us off with our first basic tool. Mark your calendars, Tuesday, February 18th. That mini session, again, is free for all of those who are in Make It Your Lettering Year. It's going to be a $25 drop-in for those of who might not be a part of that class. And then she'll have a 3-hour workshop on Wednesday, March 12th. And again, both of those sessions will be recorded, so you can access them. I think we're doing a 90-day access for the workshop. And of course, the mini session, you get lifetime access as part of Make It Your Lettering Year. All right, so let's make 2025 a wow year. All right. So what I'd love for you to do is go ahead and grab that handout. Again, if you don't have it, no worries. You can have a couple of pieces of paper on hand. And what I'm going to be writing with, of course, are my Neuland markers and a pencil. And some of the colors that I'm going to have are kind of match the colors of the handout. And I'm going to both draw and work with the handout so that those of you who are drawing along, you can see how I draw as well. So I'm going to have like a nice bright yellow. I like 500, a red, a black round nib, and then a black flex nib, because I want to have 2 different levels, and you could have 2 or 3 different levels for hierarchy. Because we're working on, probably small paper, unless you're going big. You might just want to work with smaller pens and markers. A gray marker and a 303 blue, which is a light blue marker. It doesn't matter on the nibs on these. I just want to make sure that I've got something to fill some space. So I call this this exercise hand, head, and heart, and I've been doing it for a while. And your handout, if you print it out black and white, is going to look like this, which is totally fine. And if you don't have a handout, we can start by drawing. So Let's begin. And at the top half of the page, and if you're gonna draw this out by hand, I would say make one page for this area and then one page for the hands, because it'll just be easier that way if you have two pieces of paper. So if you want to draw along with me, and you can even do this on your handout if you want, we're going to start by drawing a light bulb. And I'll show you. You can make it super easy and just do an oval, or I'm sorry, an ellipse or an oval, either way. That makes it really easy. It's symbolic of a light bulb. And then we'll take a black marker and just go around it as if this were a head. And if you want to draw the filament, it can also, think about it being an electrical charge that's also going to go in the brain. Really, you're just going to come up and make a couple of squiggles. You can follow the one I have there or come up with your own. Now we're not gonna finish the neck of the light bulb of the head, because it would look more like a light bulb. But we're gonna give it some. I guess we're gonna amorphosize it. So what I like to do is give it a collar, a shoulder, and then an arm. And that's sort of like, this is what the person could be wearing if this were a person. And then I'll take the yellow again and just make some sparkle marks around the head, because it's full of bright ideas, right? You can make your sparkle marks go in or out, however you make those. And then draw a heart. And your heart can be in the center if you like symmetry, or off to the sides. Totally up to you how you want to color that in. And then I think I'll just take and outline the heart as well. And then using my blue, I'm going to draw this cloud. And many of you that are visual practitioners, you already know some of these tips. But when I draw a cloud, I think about the bottom being, instead of flat, that you could do flat if you want it to be straight, I kind of put a wave in it. And then I draw I guess, the fullness of the cloud in, I usually go big, small, big, right? So I'm just going to start to the left here and draw it right behind. And it can go off the page, that's fine. And what this is essentially just a container where we're going to do some heart storming, brainstorming, heart storming. We're going to use both our head and our heart. And then notice I have these reverberation marks around the heart. But notice that and I didn't give enough room here, but I really want to make sure that I have 3 spaces to work. That's going to be the key piece. So if you do want to write within a reverberation mark here, if we want to write here, we might put one here, and out here, and they can get bigger as you go if you want. Small, medium, large, and just giving us a little bit of room to write in between those. And that's essentially what I do when I want to create some templates, as I think about how am I going to fill the space, what do I need to write down, and then do that. And then so that we're ready when the time comes, let's draw the hands on a separate sheet. Now, this is why I wanted a separate sheet, because it's so much easier if you just traced your hands, right? If any of you know how to draw hands, great. But sometimes they start to look quite odd. And so my suggestion is, because we want to have this symbol of hands reaching out or hands holding, you can you can put your hand down like this and trace around your hand. But if it feels awkward or weird to put your hand down like that, then you might do your opposite hand to trace so that it'll end up with the thumb sticking out. That's the main thing. So I'll demonstrate how to do that. And honestly, I'm going to write with a pencil. And if I like what I've done, then I'll go back over it with marker. But I'm going to go the opposite side and not worry too much about my wrist yet, because it's going to come from a funny angle. And this doesn't have to be perfect or pretty, because guess what? I'm not going to ask you to share these. This is all for you. And then you can put your wrist down here. Okay, and then let's do the other side. And if this is really big, that's okay because we're going to put things inside of it. You can always decide you want to write it smaller, or if you write this, if you make your hands, if your hands are really big on this big piece of a paper, you might put it on another piece of paper or pieces of paper around it later if you want. So I'm just going to have that traced out. You don't really see it. I'll go over it quickly actually with a gray marker. And why would I use a gray marker? Because I might want to write, if I do write with a black or another color over it, it won't hurt my eyes too much if those other colors go over this light gray. Otherwise, it tends to be too competitive, too contrasty, and it confuses the eye, the reader's eye. So just make a couple of hands, okay? All right. Let me make sure I've got my handouts here. Great. So you should have your heart, your head, your hands, and just want to share that this particular drawing that I did here, well, that's today's drawing, but this particular drawing, I originally drew this when I was graphic recording for Pat Senecal, and some of you might know her that's on the call. She was a fantastic facilitator here in Durango, and she was doing a whole series on Daniel Goleman and on emotional intelligence. And when I thought about emotional intelligence, I thought heart and head. And this is what we're trying to grow today is our emotional intelligence around some of the things that we want to accomplish and do here in the coming years or in the coming year. So I just wanted to share that with you because this is a common icon that I draw when I think of emotional intelligence. All right. So I'm going to ask you pretty soon to write some ideas in this cloud area. But before you do, because some of you might want a little bit of guidance, you are welcome to write it popcorn style anywhere you want. Or if you like to work more linearly, then you might want to use, and oh my gosh, this hurts so bad to think about making using a ruler. I'm not a ruler person, but you might just want to make some light marks across, not going through your head, of course. If you feel like you like to work more linearly, you want to make a list, you can do it this way. Otherwise, you can do total popcorn style. And I tend to be more comfortable with popcorn style because I feel that it really connects me to, it helps me have more ideas. If I go linear, I get too logical, too, I guess, chronological, and then I can't, more ideas don't come back in. So that's okay. And I'm going to use my, not a huge marker, but a pretty big marker to write out some of these areas, right in this area, in the cloud area. What are some of the things that I would like to do this year? And these are ideas, right? So here's our brainstorming, then we'll do some heart storming, but really brainstorming some ideas. These can be BHAGs, which stands for big, hairy, audacious goals. They can be very general or specific. They can be small tasks. Write down what big ideas you have, again, anywhere you'd like or as a list. And I'm going to start out this way because I know I'll get more ideas if I do popcorn style for just what you want to accomplish maybe in the next year or the next month or so. So take a few minutes to do that. And it's okay, especially if you're using the handout, to write outside of that if you want. And let's go ahead and write 2025 at the top because our future selves will thank us for doing that. And we're going to take, I don't know, I'd say about 3 minutes to do this. You certainly don't have to do it both ways, but I'm just going to show you this because in the next step, you might want to see how I would continue on. And your handwriting doesn't have to look great. Again, no one's going to see this but you. Sometimes our handwriting can get pretty messy when we can't write as fast as we're thinking, and that's okay. You'll see I'm putting some blue bullets around here just for each one so that it doesn't look like a wall of text. It gets, you can even put like a very thin line, like a little box around these if you want to really separate them so that you can see that they're different ideas. Right. Hey, so when we write them all over the page, they kind of have, and if we do them in the same size pen or marker, they kind of have equal weight, but they're distributed. This way, we can write little notes around them with a smaller pen or marker. And if you're working on doing it more linear, like a list, then on this side, you might split this into two areas. This, what we did first, is really the what. And even if you drew it popcorn style, you might make a little bit of a legend saying that this, and whatever color you wrote in, is the what. And then let's focus on the whys. Why is this important to us? And we will also get to that too. Guide you through how do we determine why these are important. And of course, we can think with our heads, but I also want us to think with our hearts for a moment. So I'd like to invite you to put your non-dominant hand over your heart in the center of your chest, and then place your dominant hand over that. Let me turn on my camera so I can demonstrate. So you're not just looking at a piece of paper. Go ahead and feel the weight of your body in your chair and your feet on the floor, and put your dominant hand over your non-dominant hand. And I invite you to either close your eyes or rest them on a place on your desk in front of you. Don't try to read all the words because that'll engage your brain. And with your feet flat on the floor, I'd like you to take a deep breath from the belly and honor yourself by exhaling longer than you inhaled. Sometimes we take quick, deep breaths. They don't always work. So take a moment to take that nice, deep breath and then exhale longer if you need to. You can take another one and count. How many counts does it take for you to inhale? And then when exhaling, be sure to exhale 2 to 3 more counts longer than your inhale. And what this does is it slows down your heart rate and it helps you focus inside of your body. And now, with some of these ideas in mind, I'd like you to take a deep breath and bring some of these ideas into your heart. So now I invite you to look at your list. Look at that list and let's talk about maybe putting it through the heart filter, right? What would that feel like? You can take a deep breath with each one as if you are nourishing them with each of these ideas with care and love. And when you exhale, notice how you feel when you consider these ideas not with your brain, but with your heart. Notice what's coming up. Do some of these ideas expand? Do they link to other ideas? Does putting these ideas through your heart filter expand them to include people, places, or projects? And then now bringing the energy back down to your heart in the next breath, because we just used our brain a little bit, ask yourself, what do I need? And what would fill my heart if I were to move forward with some of these ideas? And I want you to feel your feet on the floor, on the ground, and the weight in your chair, and come back and maybe with a smaller pen or a pencil, start to look at that why area. Why was this important to you? And again, you can do it popcorn style, writing around it, or sort of more linear in that next column. But why did you write these down? How did that feel in your heart? And why is this so important? And if it's helpful, I can put up an app, and let's take 5 minutes to do this. Okay, you've got about 30 seconds left. Go ahead and finish up that final thought about why these ideas are important to you. Oh, I feel like I'm at the Academy Awards. It's so pleasant. Okay. So now I'm just going to put some very thin lines between some of these because, again, to me, it looks like a wall of text and a bit of a dotted line here. For the ones that I wrote popcorn style, I probably could have done this with blue, but I have these little sort of anatomical lines call out saying why. And I'm going to go through mine. Of course, yours are going to be different. I hope. I hope you didn't copy, but because we're all so unique. But I do want to go through mine because it's important to me. And I think that even if you were to, if you can find a quiet room where people might think, oh, good, and where there won't be people around thinking, oh, she's talking to herself, or if you don't mind talking to yourself in front of other people, I think it's important to say these things. And so that's why I want to say them out loud. And for me, working on this handwriting curriculum not only helps the next generation be able to write, but I'm very passionate about doing it in the face of AI. I think we're about to go through another industrial like revolution with this. And in the 90s, when people stopped writing because they had devices in their hands, and parents were telling schools, I don't want my kids to learn writing, I want them to learn technology, they started losing their ability to think critically in very important ways. And so I feel like this is like, I know I'm not going to change the world, but if I can have a stake in the ground, this is one of the stakes I'm going to put out there. It's also important for me to strengthen community bonds. I have, since the pandemic, I have lost all of my bonds to my local community. And so I want to strengthen that, but I also want to strengthen, um, I want to be able to strengthen my community, my local community, but also my online community for collaboration efforts, and also gives me a sense of belonging. Yeah. Oh, wow. We've got some great stuff in the comments around handwriting. I would love to have a conversation about that too at some point because I feel very passionate. And for those of you that are teaching handwriting, please private message me. I have a Padlet that's full of handwriting resources for teachers. Okay. Now, this is a really big thing for me around the content that I'm doing as far as graphic recording. So, GR jobs are graphic recording. I say 1 to 2, and that means 1 to 2 days, and that's because I can't really do more than that. I just did a graphic recording job that was 4 hours and it took me down for a full day. So if someone's going to hire me for a really, really big job, I'm definitely not going to do it for more than 2 days. And I have a very specific way I graphic record now. I don't necessarily do it on paper. So for those of you that are interested in how you can graphic record sitting down if you need to, I've got some ways to make it really accessible. So I'm working on that. So I have some physical boundaries. And the justices are really important to me: environmental justice, social justice, human issues, restorative justice. I'm working with both restorative justice and environmental justice groups right now. And it's really helping me because it gives me hope and purpose about the future. And it's aligned with my values. And I want to offer more online events. I was surprised today when I created my PowerPoint of the upcoming events, and I think you're going to be too, because we have a lot of them coming up. And that's mainly because I want to stay connected to everyone, but because I'm pulling off of social media. I downloaded 8 gigabytes of content that I have put on Facebook and Instagram for the last 15 years, and I deleted almost all of it, and it felt really good and it was really scary. And I haven't yeah, so I'm pulling off of it. It's a slow go. I couldn't resist yesterday posting about Martin Luther King Day. So I did do that. But I'm trying to get off of it and I'm not going to see all of you. So in that space. So I need to do that for my mental health and for the conditioning that I believe is happening in our media. I can't be a part of that anymore because I figured all the time that I spent on social media, I could have written a book. I could have saved a life. I could have made a difference in these other places. And though I do love all of you on social media, I see a lot more of other people and other things than I do all of you. And I'd rather have our time together be really meaningful. So these are my what's and my whys. And the third thing is really the how. And we're not going to get into that right now because that's up to you. How do you do things? And I will say that I am offering some upcoming co-working sessions if you need time and space to do the how, if you need coaching around the how, I'll be here for you on that. But this is something that you can definitely come back to and be thinking about that how. I will give you a little sneak peek of it though, because I don't want to tell you how to do the things that are important to you, but I do want to give you a little bit of guidance. So, and again, you don't have to know exactly how you're going to do these things, especially if they're really big things. It's like if you knew how to do them, you'd already have done them, right? So you might just write a general term. Also, some of my favorite thing to think about when I'm doing a how is what is the next best step? And this is a coaching term that I learned from Sabine in Frankfurt. So, what's the next best step? You don't have to have the whole thing planned out. You just need to know the next thing. And then also, it helps this whole thing of next best step. It might be a baby step. It can take some of the pressure off. So be thinking about some of those next best steps, and you can write those down. But what I'd like you to do is looking back at what you've written, and I'll start on this one. We might just go forward with this one. Looking back at what you've written here, is there a space for something new to emerge? Is there some space on the page, or did you fill it up completely? And if you do have a little bit of space, great. If not, make a little bit of space somewhere and just draw another cloud. And this cloud is a symbol of the next time you do this exercise, or get another piece of paper because you have more ideas. But just put that little cloud in there to be a symbol of to come back and do this again. And if you feel complete with this process, great. If not, that's okay, because you can always come back to this. So next, let's look at this resonating heart. What's coming out of the heart? So we are using our head a lot. Oh, I just saw a question. Can we use social media just to share artwork and info and connection, but not bother with other topics? Oh, sure. Sure you can. But I don't want to be bothered by all that other stuff. It's a huge distraction. Same reason why I don't ever answer my phone. If you want me, email me or yeah, email me because I don't answer my phone because I don't need all those distractions. They keep me from all those things. But yes, please continue on if you feel strongly about that. Don't let me impress upon you. But if you want to know how to do it, I can help you do that too. If you want to know how to get off social media, I'd be happy to help you work through that. So let's look at that resonating heart. And what I'd like you to do is put your non-dominant hand again over your heart and read through your what's and your whys and consider the thing that you need in order to pull all of these things off. And we're going to label these how they resonate out in three areas. On the left-hand side, this is really going to be internal. And on the right side, it's going to be external. Thinking about our needs. What do we need to get from ourselves? And what do we need to get from the outside world? And this first area on both sides, this is the self. So you can write self or me. Then coming out a little bit bigger could be others. It could be people in your that you have a relationship with, and these are close others, family, relationships, siblings, whatever. And then the next one out is going to be community, or if you think larger than that, the world. And then go ahead and write label some, let's write some of those. And you can start wherever it feels comfortable. If you're like, oh, I feel the strongest about one of these, then start wherever you need to go to fill those in. So for me, and I'll just show you when it comes to, let's see, the self, I definitely need to give myself nourishment, right? What I need from others could be some kind of a support. So just write some key things down there. And if something comes up in the middle, like, oh my gosh, something really important here, go ahead and write that down. As I was talking about relationships, I was like, oh, relationships are really important to me. You can always go back and add more what's and whys.
What is the big umbrella for this again, please?
Yeah. So if you just joined in, the big umbrella is that we're going through the process of our head, our hearts, and then we're going to do our hands. I'm kind
Oh,
of leading you through this process, but we're looking at what do we want to accomplish in the coming year?
oh, I'm
What are some,
talking about just this particular
oh, this one.
section. Yeah.
Yeah. Needs. Excellent. This is all about your needs. What do
Okay.
you need internally, externally? From yourself, from others, from the community. It reverberates out, but it starts with you.
Heather, quick
Yeah.
question. This is Lisa.
Yeah.
Did you put support outside of the body for a reason, or that's just where it fit?
I think because there was a big line there right
Okay.
here, and I didn't like how that looked. I was like,
Yeah.
oh, I don't want to write right across that. That's an excellent question. Because now I was like, oh, well, what kind of support? And so now I'm
Right.
going to say, well, maybe support can come from, like, I would put Ray really close to my heart, but then I might put
Okay.
like my, um, maybe one of my healers, maybe they're close to my heart, but not quite as close as Ray, right? And coaches. And this might be the kind of people, because I'm thinking about relationships right now, but I could pop around and do other things. But yeah, great question. I'm going to go ahead and let's put 3 minutes on the clock. Just write some of those support needs that you need. Okay, go ahead and wrap up those final thoughts about your needs. And you might have some very specific needs, and some of them might be more general, and that's okay. I also offer a resilience class where we talk a lot about needs and we investigate those needs. There we go. Good. So for me, on closest to my heart for myself, I need to give myself nourishment, time, and attention. That kind of actually goes over to others too. I need to make sure I give them time and attention. But I use the term radical self care a lot. I had to do that because when I got very sick a few years ago, I had to spend half my day taking care of myself. That's pretty radical when you're used to working a long day. So that's a big thing, and I still practice a lot of those things. I also need support from healers, coaches, and experts, especially the things that I want to do around collaborating. I need to work with experts and learning how to do things. If I get off social media, but I still want to be on search engines like YouTube and Pinterest, because they're not really social media, they're visual search engines, I'm going to need experts to help me with those. So that's what I need to do the things that are closest to my heart. Then when it comes to others, for me, I've got to have that internal decision model. And for those of you who have worked with me, I have lots of ways to find that yes no meter, that decision model to help you make those decisions. And I have to set boundaries. And those boundaries are not only to serve other people, but to serve me. When it comes to others on the external side, I want to offer office hours and co-working. I want to work with groups that we can write grants together so that I can help them and I can get paid. I mean, I gotta live. I've got to have those fun tickets to do things like pay rent and go places and eat, right? And then community and world. For the internal, I want a sense of belonging. I want a sense of purpose in my contribution to the bigger space that I live in. And what I need in order to do that are big vision thinkers and collaborators. I can't do some of this work on my own. I can't, I sure I can teach handwriting in after school classes, but by partnering with Blackwing, I can reach hundreds of kids, if not thousands of kids, if not tens of thousands of kids, rather than 5 kids at a time. Right. So, yeah, I'm happy to do the after school handwriting, but I need to work with collaborators and bigger thinkers that have bigger audiences so that we can reach those bigger goals. So what questions do you have? What's come up for you in doing this process? Or what do you need clarification on? Does this process feel like you could repeat so far what we've done so far? You could repeat this again? And of course, you can always come back and watch the video.
Hey, Heather, this is
Yeah.
Sarah.
Yeah.
Um, I guess I'm still a little bit confused about the difference between like the internal and external needs. I'm wondering
Yeah.
if you could just sort of like narrate the how you see the difference there once
Yeah.
again, and maybe that'll help to illuminate it.
Yeah. And I'll make it really simple. And then if you need a longer explanation, I'll explain that. When it comes to my heart and my needs, what can I do for myself? How can I help? Or what do I need from others? What do I need to do? Or what do I need from? I guess this is gets a little bit confusing because I need this from others. But then this is like actual things, like these are people and things that I need. This is more internally. There's some things of what I can do, but when it comes to the community and world, wow, I might have to rethink that a little bit. I do what I do because I want a sense of belonging and purpose. That's more of a why, and these are more of the hows. If that does that help clarify a bit?
Yeah, I think so. I think where I get tripped up a little bit is in the middle zone of others, like internal needs
Ah,
of others
right.
and external needs of others. They seem like they're it's kind of the same question, but maybe I'm not hearing it
Yeah.
right.
So I would say take the person that you are the closest to, because that might be the easiest, and say, what do I need in order to have, and maybe pose the question like, what do I need in order to have the kind of relationship I want? Right now, this what I put here for decision models and boundaries is really about working with others, right? But if it were about love, if it were about or yeah, I actually, you know what? When I think of self, I put my dearest right there with me, honestly. But you could have a deeper level for just yourself, like even your dearest beloved doesn't have access to. I don't know, but I have a great relationship. But yeah, that others could be. I think it's about the question that you pose. If you're going to work with others, what do you need? I know I need a decision model and boundaries, or otherwise I'll say yes to every project. And when it comes to working with them, I need to set up a structure. And I should probably write that where it says co working in grants or co working in office hour. I need structure because if I don't put them on my calendar, it won't get done. I have a couple of people that I always say, like we said at the beginning of the call, I want to meet with you. I want to, and it's like if there's not a reason, it might not happen. If there's not a something that's inspiring or immediate need, it might not happen, right? Because other priorities get in the way.
Yeah, that helps. Thank you.
Great, great. Anyone else? Okay. So now what we've done here is we've written down a lot. Like we've got a lot down, and this doesn't have to be 100%. You can come back to this at any time. But before we move on to the hands, what else do we need to address when it comes to our heart and our head? And I want to just ask, is there anything else here that needs to be filled in for you or questions that you have? Okay. Now I'm going to share with you a practice that I've been doing for several years now, and that's the hand practice. I'll leave this out so that we've got these hands here. Actually, I'll get a nice clean one. You can see this. And some of you may have seen this in my other classes, or if you've had coaching with me, I talk about this, and it's a very powerful metaphor when we hold out our hands. And I use this every day. At some point, whether it's in a break or when I'm meditating in the morning. And what I want you to do is I want you to consider all the things in your life that are really important to you in your left, or I would say in your non-dominant hand. In your non-dominant hand, I want you to put all of the things that are really important to you. And these, you can imagine these being rocks, boulders, and you can even, I've decided to go back to this. No, I'll do this. Sorry. If you're working with the small one, you can start to write some things down. I realize I should have done this in gray. You can make some boulders, some rocks, draw some in there, and label them. What are some of these big things? And you can go back to your what's, but you can also write things more general like health. Some of it might be money. But I want you to write some of these down. And I want you to consider the things in your life, again, that are important to you. These are visual metaphors. And these are heavy, heavy things. For me, relationships are very key to me. And that's not always been the case because I work alone. I have big ideas. I don't know how to get other people to help me. It's been a challenge, and so that's a focus of mine. It's not something I'm definitely good at. It's something that I'm working on, and I'm going to use these as visual metaphors that are important to my life. Let's take a few minutes just to fill out some things that are heavy, that are things that take up your time and attention, things that take up your energy. Maybe things that you should work on, even if you don't work on it. And I say should almost in a joking way because I don't think we should all over ourselves, but we do, right? Or what if our life were better if we did spend more time on it? I want you to imagine, and you can even do this with rocks. Like if you could actually go outside. Now that I think of this, I should have done this. Should have gone outside and collected rocks and written on them. You can Collect some rocks, write some of these things on them, put them in your hand, and imagine if you imagine feeling the weight of that, of all of those things. And some of us have rocks that are piled on top of rocks, right? Like we don't just have 3 rocks, we have a lot of stuff going on. Notice what comes up for you when you think about the weight in your non dominant hand, the weight that you have to carry. And for some people, this might feel overwhelming thinking of all of the things that are big picture, the weight of the world, the weight of what's going on around us. And for others, considering all the little small things that they don't fall off, they need to be done every day can seem overwhelming, right? So the point of this part of the exercise is to feel the weight and remind yourself how strong you are. Look at how long you've been managing all of these things. Chances are some of these rocks are not new. They've been around a while. And some things you can't or don't want to change. Some things you can remove or replace. I have a coach who likes to remind me that no matter what you're doing, you can always redecide. Her name's Coach Jenny, if you haven't seen me give shout outs to her. But she's more than just a productivity coach. She helps me with what's holding me back. Yeah. So feel free to share if you want anything that you feel strongly about or have questions about that you might need some clarity on. Yeah. And it's totally okay if it looks scratchy and scribbly. Mine does too. It's okay. And you can always come back and make it look better. And by refining it later, I like to say, write now, edit later. And that's fine. Just get all of these things out. Okay, now in your right hand or your dominant hand, some of you are left handed, so yay. In your dominant hand, I want you to imagine balancing a feather. It's obviously not the same weight as all of these rocks. And if the wind blows, the rocks aren't going to go anywhere, but the feather would float away. Now, the challenge is balancing both the rocks and the feather as you move through life without losing the feather. The feather represents grace, and that feather represents our best self and presence. Now, you don't get to hold on to the feather. You can't grab it right before it leaves. You can't pinch it with your fingers. You have to just let it lay there. I know some of you were wondering what's the trick. No. You have to balance it. And now the weight of those rocks don't take all your attention anymore, do they? Because you're like, "Oh, I got to focus on this feather." So let's go ahead and draw a feather. And I'm going to show you my very, very favorite way to draw a feather, but you can draw the feather however you want. So, and I'll draw it right in the hand. And so I like to draw starting from the very, very top of a feather. So I'm imagining a feather like this from the top down, and then I'll come over and then up a little bit. And what I've done is I've drawn that spine of that feather and given it a little bit of thickness at the bottom by just coming over and up. Let me see if I need to focus. Ooh, all right. And then on the left side, I'll come over and it just kind of comes over in an arc, kind of comes over and then comes back. And then this side comes down and over. And this can take all kinds of shapes. I mean, it could be more flat, it could be more narrow. And then what kind of defines this between a leaf and a feather is sometimes there's some little hairs that stick out at the bottom here. So I always love to draw a few of those. Not hairs, they're feather. I don't know. It's the transition between this part of the feather and then what goes into the skin of the bird. And then I like to draw little lines, and I don't draw them right across from each other because someone might think that that's a leaf. But if I draw just a few, and I like to draw an odd number going down into the spine of that feather, there's my feather. That's just my favorite way. And I love drawing feathers. I draw them all the time. And I love finding them because I feel like they're little clues, little reminders for me to have grace. Now, what I want you to do is I want you to consider this. Let me zoom out. And I'm even going to cheat a little bit and bring back my other handout. What if you stayed present a little bit longer with this feather before thinking about all the things in your other hand? And what if in this moment you don't have to figure out, solve, or do anything? Maybe take a deep breath because my body just wanted to do that. It was like, ooh, we need a release. And remember to exhale longer than you inhale. How does that feel in your body when you can really think about the grace? What do you notice? And if your mind is still racing, ask it to connect to your heart to find out what you need to practice being more present. And just notice what's coming up. And that's a great thing to journal on too when you get a chance. Now, let's put this into action. So, what I want you to do is I want you to think about those next best steps as we move forward in our life with these things, holding on to these boulders, these rocks, and gracefully balancing the feather on the rock side with each one of these things that you've identified. Because even though we came up with all of these ideas, it's still up in the cloud, right? Those are still concepts in some ways or things that we're working on. But these are things that are real. These rocks, these are actual things. That's heavy. They're objects. What I want you to do is maybe call out some areas here and just write that next best step. What's the next best step? And it might be that you are going to pick up a phone or write an email, do something really, really small that feels like you're moving the needle forward. Okay. This sounds really simple, but when it comes to relationships, I'm just going to make eye contact. Oh my gosh, how much time have I spent on my phone? I'm really going to look into the eyes of other people. I'm going to make time for them. I'm going to reach out to a friend, at least one friend once a week and say, "Hey, I want to get on your calendar. We haven't caught up lately." Even if I can't meet them for a month from now, I'm still going to do it. Right? Just what are those next best steps? And now let's look at this feather. Wow. Okay, we drew a feather. I love it. That's a good day if I get to draw a feather. For some of you, grace has been on the case for a while now, and you have it mastered, and I admire you for that. That's awesome. Go ahead and write down what's working. How do you get to maintain your grace? For those of us that have been working on this for a while, or it's a new concept we haven't really considered, walking through life with more grace as we balance all of these other things, write down a way that can be gentle with ourselves to help us balance that feather. Now, for me, what I find really helpful is meditating and practicing self inquiry and non duality. And I'm able to walk through my day with more grace when I do that, but it may be different for you. I feel more balanced despite all of those other things I have to juggle. All right. And I just want you to remember that while we have things in both hands and we've recognized that some things are heavy and some things are light, balance isn't always about them being an equal weight, but they can be equal in meaning. And we can put our attention and focus to them evenly to ensure our balance. And can we just thank our hands a minute? Can we just be like grateful, like, wow, hands, they work so hard, and we often take for granted how they've served us. And if you're someone who doesn't have two hands, or you've lost the function of one of your hands, or partial function, or function in both of your hands, imagine having a strong hand and put all the weight there and balance that feather with the hand that you do have. The hand that you do have, the strongest hand, that's where grace, if we were to focus on that, it makes all of these other things seem so much lighter. So I'm curious, what are you noticing? And again, you don't have to share what you wrote, but if you could distill down how that, maybe what you got from this, what's coming up for you, what questions do you have? I'd love to hear them. Okay. So what do we do with all of this? Well, those of you who want to take action right away, you might take a highlighter and highlight the next best steps. Get out your calendar and make time to do the things that you've outlined. For those of you who want to feel deeper into this or do this again, you might take some time later today or tomorrow to reflect on this. And the sooner you do so, the better chance you have in strengthening these new synapses that you've just created in your brain. And by making this a practice or doing other practices like this, you can form that myelin sheath that acts as that strong electrical conduit that strengthens that emotional intelligence. Now, for those of you that like to set it and forget it, all right, you've done it, right? So keep on with your life and maybe come back to this in a month or two and see how far you've come. Or if you're like me, this will end up in a pile of papers and I'll discover it a year from now and I'll go, oh, wow, I did some of those things. That's great. I feel good about that. Okay. And so while I'm not going to ask you again to hold up your drawings, I would love to know one thing that you are willing to say or share about the process. It can be one word, what you enjoyed or what surprised you. And I'm going to ask you to put that in the chat. And I did have someone private message me asking me to show the hands again. Absolutely. But I'd love to see in the chat, what is one thing that you enjoyed or surprised you? Yeah, sometimes we just need time to reflect. So when it comes to the hands, yeah, it's important to write these things down, but it's even more important to feel them. Put those hands out. Really feel that weight. Yeah. Surprised. Someone said the surprised by the thought that balance is not always about weight being equal, but the value. Yeah, focusing on what's really important, the joy of the feather, feeling overwhelmed. Yeah, this is real. When we start to write things down and look at all of them, it can be very overwhelming. I hope you can find some peace in that. I'm glad that you found some time to reflect. The amount of things that come together as ideas, the what's, oh my gosh, could you just like, we might as well just have a whole wall full of those, right? We can certainly do a brain dump that's just goes on forever. Some of the items on the grace side could be next best steps. Absolutely. Because it's a practice, right? We're building habits. It can be your next best step forever. Someone said third step of the heart. Interesting. The clarity of the answer you received. Great. The aware of being needy. Oh yeah. Yeah, so there's that little there's that little voice that comes in and tells you what we're doing wrong or what, or being aware of being needy because you thought about your needs. Oh good. Well, we're humans, we have a lot of them, right? That's okay too. And sometimes we are needy. Yeah, lightness buoying the heavy things, energy. Good. I'm glad that you all spent some time. And I will tell you that the next time you find a feather and you're by yourself, you're going to have a completely different, I hope, different conversation with yourself. Yeah, it is hard to name needs. I think that naming the needs is what helps us build that resilience and emotional intelligence. Good. Oh my gosh, these are so good. Someone shared that third step of the heart, right? So use your heart as a filter. Use your heart to heart storm instead of brainstorm. What does your heart want? Yeah, good, good. All right. Well, hopefully you're feeling good about this. I really love that you shared what was working for you. I do want to share what's coming up in this next year because I'm excited about it, both because I'm doing a lot of hosting and a lot of holding a space for other people, which has been my goal for several years. I am still teaching, but I'm hoping you're going to take all of this to make 2025 a wow year and that you'll keep working with me. Want to remind everybody that February 1st is Pangram Day. We're actually going to celebrate the whole month, and more information is going to come about how we're going to do that. We might change things up slightly, but I hope you're still writing your original pangrams or at least lettering the ones that you found that were originals. I saw some thumbs up. Somebody was excited. Who was that? Susan. Yes. Yeah, you were a winner from last year, right? Yay. Yay, so glad you're here. So, for those of you that are like, what's a pangram? A pangram is a hollow alphabetic sentence, which means it is a sentence that has all of the letters of the alphabet. So, you're familiar with the quick brown fox, and I stopped writing it because that's so boring. I'm tired of writing those letters next to each other. So, we've asked people from the community to go to pangramlove.com and submit their original pangrams. And anybody can do that. Susan is holding up her sticker. That's great. Yes, she was the winner of two. This is what was great is that the Sweethearts of Lettering, Carol, Mike, and Sharon did a blind viewing of all of the pangrams that were submitted. You can go to pangramlove.com and submit your pangram. They didn't know. I don't let them know who wrote what, and Susan won two of them. So she is a master pangram writer. So I'll put that website in the chat, even though it's super easy to remember. Pangramlove.com. More to come on that.
Thank
Okay.
you for that program, Heather. It brings the community together, and if that's one of your wow factors, it really
Yeah.
did for everybody.
Well, and that's
So
just it, is I was finding that it was a great way to bring people together. And I will say that I've had people writing in saying, "Oh my gosh, I use AI to write all my pangrams now." And I'm like, "What?" Like there is something really special about not using AI and what happens to your brain because it's a really hard puzzle. And then once you write one, it's like something snaps in your head and you can write a whole bunch of them. And so I'm going to write a little bit about the advantages and disadvantages of AI. And I'm toying around bringing the community together in some other ways too, other than just submitting and waiting to see who wins. So it was fabulous, and we got stickers out of it. That's great. Yeah, we hope to do more, but we also have to balance that with taking it easy on ourselves, right? Self care. That we get a lot of submissions and it's a lot of work, and we want to make it super easy. I'm also thinking that maybe a guild wants to take this on. So if your guild, whoever's listening, if your guild is interested in celebrating Pangram Day and wants to have a Pangram event, go for it. And if you want to take on the Pangram contest, let's talk about what that might look like because I want it to definitely live on beyond me. But yeah, yeah, and honestly, I use AI for a couple of things, and I'll talk about that in a second too. So, also want you to mark your calendars. Next live session that we have as part of Make It Your Lettering Year, Amity Parks is giving a mini session. So this is free for anyone in Make It Your Lettering Year. It'll be a $25 drop in for those of you that want to have this quick lesson. It's about an hour lesson that she'll give, but the session will be about an hour and a half and some time. And what she's doing here, we're not going to do any lettering. You bring your own calligraphy or lettering, and she is going to show us how to make this really cool drop shadow. So we're just doing the pencil part of the drop shadow. She's got great tips there. Um, Sharon Zeugen is back in Imagination Ignited. This is going to be a series of pop-up events. You can thank several people who said, hey, can we not have these big, deep things, but have these consistent or at least throughout the year events? And so Sharon's doing that. Our next one's going to be on Thursday, February 20th. The time will be announced. There'll be more to come about that. I'm offering a series of co-working sessions. Now, it will be paid in the future, but in February, it'll be completely free. It's held on Tuesdays, the same time as we're doing this now, except for the third Tuesday, because we have this staked out for this time. So what this is about is creating a structure and accountability for us to keep working together. Focus and Flow is going to be a very structured co-working session where we set our intention at the beginning. You have 45 minutes to work. Then we check in with ourselves, and I have a very specific graphic that helps you get through some of those resistance points so that you can stay in the flow state and keep working. You get another 45 minutes, and then we have a quick embodiment exercise. So Focus and Flow is coming in February. So mark your calendars for that. It'll be totally free, and you can sign up anytime. And then, of course, I do visual coaching, which means I coach creatives, but I do it in a visual way, just like I did today with this template. We use lots of different models and visuals to come in. Sometimes they're completely customized to help creative professionals design their next chapter of their creative life. And of course, I offer building resilience sessions. The next one is February 6th. This is where we do more of that self-inquiry. Focus and Flow will be, it will be the same time as this time. It'll start at 10 at Mountain Time. So whatever time you started today will start. Building resilience, this is more self-inquiry work that's based in appreciative inquiry. It's a group coaching session where I lead you through the process. And again, you can do it again and again by yourself, but if you want to do it in a group session, it's really great to help parallel process what other people are going through as well. And then Amity's back because I love to have a quick lesson, and then she's going to give a longer 3-hour workshop on March 12th called A Fine Line, and it's going to be about adding even more depth and detail to your lettering, all pencils, because remember our theme this year is tools. And then on March 18th, I'm bringing in Sarah Greenman. She's the author of The Creative Alchemy Cycle. It's based on the Celtic cycle. And she's just recent, like this book came out this year, and she's going to be guiding us through a creative process. So bring your favorite tools to write and draw with. She'll also have a short supply list. You can use whatever you want, and she'll take us through a creative process. And we'll be right between, let's see, the cross quarter day Imbolc and the spring equinox. And so we'll be thinking about where we are in the year with that. And let's see. This is an in-person thing, so I know a lot of you can't come, but I am going to be teaching lettering for facilitators and trainers. This is something that I've taught for a couple of years, but I do it specifically for people who are working in front of the room and aren't graphic facilitators. Although graphic facilitators can take this class if they want to, because it's really about rapid capture and the very basics of scaling that rapid capture lettering style up for hierarchy. I will offer this online as well, and I'm creating a self-paced class to go along with it. And then Level Up Your Lettering Virtual. This is the very first class I ever taught online, was called Level Up Your Lettering. It's since grown into a 3-day in-person class, and now I've reduced it back down to a month-long class specifically for visual practitioners who want to learn my trademarked hierarchy formula. So I have a formula of how to capture all of your letters when you're working live or in studio for your clients at different hierarchy levels and then also different styles. And then if you are a visual practitioner and you want to learn appreciative inquiry and how to use that in planning meeting designs, I also will be offering that. That class is available now, self-paced, and I'll be offering office hours. And then I just got my first booking, but there's probably going to be more this year. Anyone who wants to come to Durango, Colorado for a lettering retreat, I do host private groups and one-to-ones. So for those of you that are traveling to Southwest Colorado, I've had some people from other countries come, and I let them take over my studio, and we just letter for as long as they want while they're here. And then with Tech Host Academy, our next sandbox session is Thursday, February 13th. So if you want to learn all geeky things about Zoom and how to make meetings more engaging, efficient, and equitable, check that out. And if you're like, what is that all about? Well, You can get a sneak peek of it in Tech Host Academy's Greatest Hits. And those are, that's my online course, again, self-paced to help you become a better tech host. Are you ready to make 2025 a wow year? I can't wait to see what you do. I'm sure you're going to accomplish something great, even if it's not everything on the list, and that's okay. As long as you're walking through life with grace, I think you've accomplished it. All right. Thank you, everyone, for spending the morning with me. I appreciate you. We'll see you next time. Bye.